So my canvas here is just a little canvas board. I've covered it with an acrylic paint in orange on there, just to give us something to work onto instead of onto the white canvas, because that then will help us with the tones, with how dark and how light the painting is, and also if any bits of it peek through at the end, we get a lovely orange colour that will unify the picture rather than the white of the canvas. But we're going to go ahead now and just sketch out the building in the background and some of the lines, and then we'll paint it in and see how we get on. So here's my palette then, and I'm laying out two blobs of titanium white on there, one for the cool colours and one for the warm colours. Don't want to get them mixed up, otherwise we can end up with muddy colours. And I'm laying down just three primaries. I'm using ultramarine blue, which is a nice dark blue, and it'll give us some nice darks when we need them. And also alizarin crimson, which again is a dark red, so that we can get those nice darks. And alongside the blue and the red, I'm putting down cadmium yellow as well. And with those three primaries, we'll paint the whole picture. Now we need to get some lines drawn, so I'm looking at the house there and I want to get the angle of the roof right, so I'm going to come in with my brush, just line it up there, bring it down onto the canvas, keeping my arm nice and straight, and draw that line in. Let's try the other side of the roof, hold it up, arm outstretched, put it down on the canvas, and there's that line coming in for the other side of the roof, just about there. That's it. And now with that blue paint, I'm just going to go in and draw in just a few more lines of the house, just to give us something to work to. Using water-based oils, which are great for using in the field because you can just wash the brushes out with water and you can thin them down with water, no need to take turps with you. Put the palm tree in there, and that's all the drawing we need really. So let's come on and begin to paint in the sky. So taking a blob of white and putting a little touch of blue into it to make a light blue sky. If you're making light colours, never start off with the dark one first. If I started with the blue and tried to add white into it, I would end up putting in more white until I ended up with a massive blob. That was more than I would need. So let's paint that sky in, and just putting it in there quite loosely, allowing some of the orange to shine through. Let's put a little bit darker here in the top as well, just to bring a bit of variation into the sky. And just holding the brush quite loosely, just plonking the paint on really. There's a white cloud just above the roof of the house there. We'll put that in with some pure white. And just down below that is the bit of shadow from the cloud, which is a purpley colour, so I've mixed some of the red and blue together, lightened it with a bit of white, and we'll just put that in. So I'm using a flat brush, which is great for coming in against straight lines like the edges of buildings and things. So I'm using a flat brush actually for most of this painting, apart from a small round brush for some of the details later on, but largely I'm using a flat brush. So I've only brought the two brushes with me and three paints and a palette knife, so I've not come out with much kit, and that's great really. If you're having to move around a bit, it's good just to have as light a kit as you can. I'm putting some of this blue into the foreground as well, and you'll say, well, there isn't any blue in the foreground. Well no, but to tie the sky into the land, to tie the top of the picture into the bottom, we need some of that blue there, and it'll work wonderfully, you'll see later on. Now the real colour of the land there is this sort of ochre colour, so I'm going to mix that up now with a little bit of yellow, lightened down with white, and a touch of red put into it to make an orange. Well, that's a bit strong, the red's quite a powerful colour, so let's add a little bit more yellow back in to that. Lighten it down again with a bit of white, and then into that orange you need to add a little bit of blue, just to make it a little bit more of an earth colour, just to knock the intensity out of the colour, and that makes a sort of a pretty close approximation to yellow ochre. So I'm going to use that on the painting. I'm going to put it straight on with the palette knife, just to use up the paint really, don't want to waste any paint, so we'll just slap it on there. There we go. And now we're going to come in with the brush and paint in the building. I've added a hint of white, a bit more white to the mix, just to get the sunshine ready to shine on it and for it to stand out from the land around. So we'll just paint that in. Put a little bit of a darker colour in the middle there on that middle section, but just to give variety. And then we want to paint the other side of the house, which is in shade. So mixed up a bit of the cloud colour, the purple from the cloud, with the creamy white there, and we'll just put that in on the side of the house there, and bring in a little bit of variety into that as well, down towards the far end. So there we go. That's the main bit of the house completely blocked in. Now, as well as this yellow ochre colour, I also want to put in some greens as well. There are some greens in the landscape, so I'm going to mix up a green with the yellow and the blue. And then I want some variety, so I'm going to mix a couple of other greens as well, one with a bit more yellow and another one with a bit more blue. So we've got some variations of greens there that I can use. Again, just want to wipe the knife off really on the palette, on the canvas up there, and come in now with the brush and let's paint in some of these greens. Let's come in, just put a bit of the shape really to the palm tree there. I'll come in with more detail later, but let's just get the canvas covered with some paint first, and we can tidy it up later. So put in a bit of the palm tree, and needs a green bush or something over this side just to balance out the palm tree that's on the other side. And I think we're going to put a green tree or a bush or something in here as well. There is a building there, but I don't want to put that in because it would complicate the shapes, so cut that out and just put that bush in there. And again, just while I've got the green on my brush, let's put some into the foreground as well. Try and mark out where some of these little bushes and things are in there. Just painting it all very loosely. It's quite impressionistic really, this style of painting. So holding the brush quite well back, just enabling it to kind of flick in fairly organically. Got some of this light green. I want to mark in a path really that will just lead the eye up towards the house from the front of the picture. You can lead the viewer in to the main focal point of the picture. So I'll just put some more of that in. Just little bits here and there. It can be tempting just to fiddle around a bit too much, so I'll stop there with that. And we just need to touch in the roof. I'm using the same yellow ochre colour for this because the roofs around here are, in fact all the buildings really, are made of the materials that are around. So they're made of the earth and the stones that are around here. So the colours are pretty much the same. So we'll just put that roof in there, and with the shadow colour that I've got, that I used for the clouds, let's just pop in a bit of shadow under the eaves of the roof there, just to make those stand up, using a little tiny round brush for that. There we go. Put in some windows and doors as well with that purple colour, and I'll tidy those up and make those a little bit straighter later on. So we now want to fill in the foreground. The background's pretty well done. Let's do the foreground, and coming in with this lovely creamy ochre colour. Lots of paint on the brush, lots going down there, and I just want to mark in pretty much the kind of the contours, in a way, the shapes of the land. There is a shape to it. There's a bit of a slope that comes in from the left hand side down to the right there, and I want to try and get some of that in, so I'm painting in that direction with my brush marks. A little bit of red there just for something different. And then at the front here I want to come in with a palette knife because I want lots of texture at the front of the painting. I want more things going on, more texture there at the front and a little bit softer at the back. It creates that kind of 3D feeling where you can walk into the painting. So we'll scratch in a few things there in the front, and just a little bit further back as well, just one or two places. Don't want to do too much though. Just keep it nice and loose. There we go. Now I probably want to smudge one or two areas as well, so I'm going to use my finger for that, just getting in there with the finger just to soften some areas that just need it. And then with the back of the brush, the pointy end, just going to come in and scratch in some grasses or some twigs or some bits and pieces, just in one or two places, not all over, but just one or two places, just to create, again, extra tension. I want this to be a visual feast for the eye. When you look at the painting, there's lots of things to look at in the foreground, and then you find the house at the back there, which contrasts really well with it. So the final stage is really just painting in the palm tree, a little bit of detail on that with a little fine brush. Just tidy that up, really tidy up the trunk of the palm tree there, make that stand out against those bushes at the back. And that's where I think I'm going to leave it. So that's the picture finished, and it's not an exact representation of what's behind me, but it's tried to capture some of the essence of the landscape around here and the building as well in the sunshine. So it's got some abstract elements in it as well as some realistic ones, and why don't you just have a go at doing something like that yourself? So I've done some other versions as well of this scene. This is an acrylic version, just on square, which is quite abstract, and this is another oil painting which is a little bit more realistic of the area and the colours. And I've got a watercolour as well, which again is quite abstracty and was just sort of fun to paint on a very hot day.